Good evening. Welcome to this special edition of The Big Fight, coming to you live from New Delhi, couple of days after the union budget. And what we've done today is we've gathered a diverse range of really excellent views and people to talk about various aspects of the budget. You heard from some of the experts, but you also had now 2 days to sit and think about what the budget means. One day after the budget, the stock market suddenly crashed very sharply indeed. Some people are saying it's not because of the budget, it's because of international prices. Well, perhaps we'll find out on Monday whether it was linked or not. But you've seen other things. There's a lot of talk about some of the hidden provisions of the budget. Modicare, of course, which is the health insurance scheme, we've all labelled it Modicare. But that's, of course, got the headlines. But there's a lot else in the budget that perhaps needs a certain amount of attention, and we're going to try and draw attention to some of those hidden aspects of the budget as well over the next 1 hour or so. But there's an overall question that I want to ask after the budget. Are we seeing a substantial change in the philosophy of the government, this government in particular? Is India moving once again towards being a welfare state? Nothing wrong with it, but is that the direction that we are moving in? Modicare, a lot of the spending for the poor, middle classes somewhat ignored, and definitely policies to tax the rich. That seems to be the philosophy. It seems to be a philosophy heading towards a certain amount of welfare states. Is that really the direction we are headed in? And if so, what does that mean? And a second overall question that we are going to be asking is, for this government now, are we in a strange situation where there seems to be, it's called a right-wing government, but with very left-wing economic policies? And is that the dichotomy that we're going to see all the way through to 2019? So two big questions I'm going to be asking everyone out here, in addition to everything else that we are discussing. Let me start by welcoming all the guests that we have with us. We have Arvind Gupta, the head of the Digital India Foundation, been very close to the BJP. They had a very important role in 2014, so it's wonderful to have you on the Big Fight again. Arvind Mutreja, Executive Director, Population Foundation of India, has lots of views on what the budget could and should not have done. Bipin Preet Singh, Founder, CEO and Director of MobiQuick, been leading that charge towards digital payments, so we will see what you make of various aspects of this. Gaurav Vallabh, spokesperson of the Congress Party, great to have you with us. Dr. Harsh Mahajan, one of our most noted medical experts. I'm going to be asking you as to whether you can really spread healthcare that fast and that quickly in all corners of the country. You've been trying to do it as fast as you can. I'm going to get your expert views on that. Rahul Garg, senior tax expert for PwC, is with us, and maybe you found some other tax provisions that we should all be worried about. Customs duty, by the way, took a lot of us by surprise. It was hidden somewhere there, and suddenly you realize it's across the board. So what else there is? Avik Saha, co-convener of the Jai Kisan Andolan, is about to join us. And Dr. Jayati Ghosh, Professor, Center for Economic Studies at the JNU. Thank you all so much for being with us. Let me start off with that first big question that I asked before we get into the rest of the fine print of the budget. The direction that we are seeing, Arvind, are we moving towards a welfare state? If so, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is something else we can discuss? And is this a right-wing government with a left-wing economic agenda now?
Yeah, Vikram, I think while you are putting some acronyms to the government, I think the government's vision has been very consistent. It's a government which always has said Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. And according to me, this is a budget which shows consistency of policy, moving forward in what they've done in 4 years, moving to an execution year pre-election. And I think the budget really has become a vision statement, and which it should be. I mean, the number crunching from the budget has really been reduced. Half the indirect taxes have been taken away in GST. So really the budget has the new schemes, the new visions to be announced, and this budget shows that. It shows the consistency of the government thinking big and implementing big. I mean,
I'm just trying to understand. You're right that there is a vision in here somewhere. And I think if you're trying to understand the vision, start from demonetization. It had a similar sort of a vision. Tax the rich, it's against the rich, for the poor, paid major electoral dividends in the UP election. If you're saying there's a vision in there somewhere, is that the vision that we should have some sort of a welfare state where the poor get their basic minimum requirements met, whether it's education, LPG is there inside this, electricity is there for 4 crore households, healthcare obviously has already got a lot of headlines. So we are going to provide a certain minimum infrastructure, certain minimum facilities, minimum services to the poor, and yes, the rich are going to be taxed to make up for it.
See, I think that is the point I'm trying to make. That is, it has to ensure the welfare for everybody. The people who have been left behind, the Antyodaya scheme that the BJP, you talked about 2014. The manifesto or the vision statement did talk about providing the minimum facilities to every citizen of India. So this budget takes that forward. I mean, there is talk about toilets which has been executed, electricity, LPG, cooking gas, and now health insurance. So I think from providing banking inclusion, where the government showed that they can think big, they are now thinking big in terms of providing health insurance to everybody. So you're right. I mean, it is showing that it wants to include everybody into the formal system of India, get everybody the minimum amenities that they need, and bring India upwards from a bottom up. It's not just thinking from the top down. And I think it's a very important thing to take care of all segments of the society. So,
okay, a lot what you have said will probably be music to Dr. Jaitley Ghosh's ears, somewhat surprisingly for her, but I suppose. But before I come to her, let me just get Gaurav Vallabh in. From a Congress party view, is that the broad vision that we should derive? And if so, would the Congress party agree with it or disagree with it? In a sense, it's not that dissimilar to, it's being done in a different manner, but the Congress party for many years, 1970s, Garibi Hatao, this is sort of that thinking.
See, Vikram, every budget is having a context. Every budget is having a goal. But unfortunately, both of them is missing here. Why? I'm giving you the reason of that. See, I'm a student of economics, and I taught economics for well number of years. Whenever we say budget, there should be a provision for that. We are not against the welfare schemes of the government, mind it. Whether it's a universal health, in fact, that was started by us with 30,000 rupees per person for the tertiary and the hospitalization. Let me
a tiny little scheme compared to what there is now.
Vikram, let me complete.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to make acronyms or jumlas or rhetorics which we can't deliver. See, I will give you one example. When there was a farm waiver by UP, the money was provided in the budget. Can you imagine, Vikram, a budget without any allocation?
Okay.
Is it possible?
Fair point. Your view is that it's a jumla and it cannot actually be implemented. And I promise you, I am going to spend some time looking at that particular question. Even on budget day, I did ask many of the members of the government, ranging from Amitabh Kant, Hasmukh Kadia, others, how are you going to do it? And they gave us some answers. We'll study those in just a couple of minutes. But Jaitley,
whenever you want, I want to interject on that just to give a perspective, which is very important. That I think every scheme that this government has launched has been called a jumla before it is. But today the numbers stand out. I mean, look at the Jan Dhan Yojana. Everybody said, what are these 30 crore accounts? 22 crore in first year. Today, 18% of them are zero balance. Rest, everybody is having some money in those Jan Dhan accounts. Similarly, if you see the Ujjwala scheme, already about 3.36 crores. LPG cylinders have been delivered to so many households, by the way. This is not individuals, this is households. And it's going to extend it to 8 crores. So,
Vikram, for both the things, allocations were there.
No, so
okay.
You are talking about an implementation
I'm going to come back to
Modicare. Are lacking imagination.
Modicare is an extremely huge, and I have to say, imaginative and potentially transformative
That is the whole
scheme.
point. It reimagines how you can deliver healthcare.
That's something I would like to come back and talk about that in some length. But I just want to get the overall perspective out of the way first. Dr. Jaitley Ghosh, you will remember a day before the budget, we were sort of trying to figure out what is expected, and you said, don't worry about what the market makes of it, it's totally irrelevant. But the market didn't like it, so fine. You also said it is important to make it inclusive. Do you think the direction that the government seems to be following is therefore something that you would tend to agree with? Welfare, it's a right-wing government with left-wing economic policies. That's what it's looking like right now. Would you agree with that characterization for starters?
Not really, Vikram, because I too am an economist. I look at numbers, and the numbers in the budget are actually not at all inclusive. Total health spending is coming down as a share of the budget and of GDP. So spending on agriculture is barely keeping pace with the increase in nominal GDP. This talk of giving 50% above costs to farmers is a clear attempt at fooling farmers, because they're saying now that it's the lower cost that they're using. So they're going to give less than the UPA gave in its second tenure. And this particular big ticket item, the medical insurance, this is amazing that they could get away with it. It's not even, there is not even a budget head. So if you take the existing scheme, the 30,000 that is being talked about, that is increased by a paltry 672 crore. I mean, that's tiny in terms of the spending over last year. And if you consider that last year's budget had already announced a scheme that was going to provide 1 lakh to every family, and now they've suddenly increased, and that didn't get off the ground, as you know.
Okay.
Nobody's mentioning it today, but it was in last year's budget speech. Now they're suddenly announcing 5 lakhs. They're not even giving the money. Is this a joke on the people? How can you do this?
Okay,
A budget
Jaitley,
is
but
meant
the
to
broad-
give you financial statements.
Oh, okay.
It's
How they're
not
going to do
supposed
it?
Announce a new policy.
Okay,
if you announce a new policy, fine.
Okay.
You know,
but
announce a new policy, fine. But a budget is about financial allocations. There's
Okay.
no financial allocation. For
okay.
this.
But the
Overall,
philosophy,
if you're
but hang on,
looking
can
at
I ask you the
allocations for
philosophy?
poor, the welfare entitlements that you're talking about,
Yeah.
they're coming down.
In fact, Vikram,
So I'm not
the
interested in the
agriculture
speeches.
allocation
I mean, all
got
budget
reduced.
speeches are very
The health
poor,
allocation
very
got
positive,
reduced.
very excellent.
And on the
Mr.
other side, a
Chidambaram
new
did
scheme,
do
new
it.
acronym,
But
Okay.
that-
Namo
but
or
the
Modi
issue
or
is
whatever
how much
name you
money
call,
are
we are not
putting
against that.
Jaitley,
And the money they're putting there is coming down.
okay, Jaitley, hang on. The principle of saying, I'm just trying to understand the principle. Let's just come to
Yeah.
how they're going to do it in a couple of minutes. Would you agree with the principle of saying, give the poorest to the poor free electricity, give them free LPG cylinders, give them free health insurance, give them, so on and so forth. That's the way we will be inclusive. That's the best way to take the country forward. Would you agree with that as a philosophy? You may say that good philosophy,
Well-
they're not doing it. Would you agree with the philosophy of it? Because there's some who would not.
Part of it. I would say give the poorest of the poor certainly the food, which is not being given at the moment. Give them electricity, give them housing, give them public health of good quality. Give them public health services of good quality.
Okay.
Because shifting to a privatized basis in an industry which we know has got massive information asymmetries, it's really a very, very
See,
problematic
Vikram,
move in a poor
I am
country.
Okay, let me get Arvind in. Let me just get
We really
Arvind in to
need to go
respond to
for a
this, and I want to
much
get the
enlarged
others into
public
this.
health system.
So
we
I don't
finished with the philosophical one, now we're going to start getting into the details. Arvind.
See, I think you're talking about the acronyms that you are giving. It's basically the insurance scheme is something that we need to reimagine at a scale that we have done. If you talk about 100 million households, nothing has been done at this scale. And if you pool the resources and get the 5 lakh coverage that we are talking about, I think there has been enough analysis done that is easily doable.
Okay.
And this is health, if you all know, is a center state subject. And if at the end of the day,
Even in the Niti Aayog, 3 people are coming up with 3 different estimates.
no, hold on. The estimates are being talked about. I don't know which are the sources you are using, but at the end of the day, if you get health insurance, which is clubbed together for so many people, the scale gets achieved, and 1,000, 1,100 rupees per family coverage is possible. And that's what this scheme is reimagining, and it will be launched during the financial year. And I think, you're talking about as if this will be implemented in one go. There is an allocation for this, where the first year, the 6-8 months that it will be implemented in this year, it will be used.
So,
but the eventual aim is to cover everybody, and that's what it is. So I really don't understand the 2,000 crores that has been allocated. It is, you start talking about it that it's not enough. It's not going to be used in the very first year.
Okay, hold that thought, everybody. Despite my best efforts to try and get anyone to discuss broader issues, we are still talking about Modicare, as it is called, because let's face it, that was the biggest headline item emerging from the budget. You can keep talking about long-term capital gains and the rest of it. 500 million people getting health care, that has emerged as the biggest talking point. So I'm going to open it up to the rest of you, but before I do that, can I just play for you? I asked many of the same questions that have just been raised to members of the government, to the people who actually are behind this. And let me play for you what they had to say, and then I'm going to get the rest of you to tell me whether they're right or whether they're wrong. So I started with Hasmukh Adia. I asked Hasmukh Adia, who's the finance secretary, how specifically is this going to work? Where is the money going to come from? How are you assuming that the premiums will be affordable? This was the answer that Hasmukh Adia gave me. the health insurance scheme. Right, 100 million households, 500 million people getting insurance at 5 lakh rupees cover per family. That's a big bang step. But even now, I was asking that question just a short while back to Mr. Garg as well. There's still questions as to where the money is going to come from and how much money it will take. If you're assuming 4,000 to 5,000 crore rupees will be the money that will be required for that, is that enough or is that too conservative?
Well, let me tell you that when you insure a large group of people, such as 10 crore people are being insured, the premiums definitely come down because the chances of everybody falling sick is not there. So the larger the group, the lower the premium. This is the rule of the insurance industry. So the idea of covering large number of people is this. So we may decide to go in for an insurance model or a trust model or a combination of the both, depending on the comfort of the state. So the whole implementation will be, the action will be at the state level. Guidelines will be given by Government of India. The state can choose either the trust model or the insurance model, and it would be a centrally sponsored scheme. So there will be a sharing of 60-40. So states will also put in their bit, and the amount of premium we expect is not going to be high for covering so many people, you know.
All right, that was Hasmukh Adhia, and I want to show you what Amitabh Kant said in just a couple of minutes. But let me get the others into this discussion now. Poonam Mathreja, what do you make of it as a broad idea to ensure? And there were other things in the budget. Now, Jaitley says there's no real allocation for them, so therefore, as the Congress party is saying, there's a jumla in it. But the concept of giving direct benefits like this to the poorest to the poor, is it a step in the right direction?
I absolutely think it's a step in the right direction, and we have to welcome it. And the fact that it's called Modicare, I hope that label will stick and the perception will stay that Modi cares and he puts in more money. Finances, everyone's talking about, we don't have adequate finances for not just the insurance scheme, but the 1,50,000 wellness centers in the primary healthcare sector. The money is totally inadequate, but what about regulation? Because you're going to have the private sector which is going to offer these services, and the regulator, insurance regulators. Where is our health sector, private sector, is totally unregulated. So we have to do a lot of homework and put in place, and in fact, it should have been done before the scheme has been announced. Many of us have been talking about it for a very, very long time. So not just the regulation, but the planning. The scheme, the earlier scheme, RSBY, has not worked. So have we really evaluated it and seen how we are going to make this difference? I have no evidence to believe the government has done that. So their work begins now, and the allocations is a serious concern, not just for this. How our public health system is in ICU. If you go and see primary healthcare centers in the rural areas, they're in shambles. So we need a lot of money for that. Finally, I actually welcome the cess on health, the increase, sorry, middle class, but I welcome it.
Okay, we're going to come to what the middle class thinks of all of this in a couple of minutes, but let's just finish Modicare. Harsh Mahajan, I really wanted to get you on this because you have spent a lot of time really working on the issue. How do you take healthcare to the masses? Theoretically, this is one of the ways of doing it, to say 500 million people now have the spending capability to be able to afford quality healthcare. You set that up, and that was said to me by some of the government officials themselves. Once you've done that, almost miraculously, the private health infrastructures will start to go out into all areas.
Let me address that as a doctor and an entrepreneur, not as an economist. I know nothing of economics. The healthcare industry uniformly has welcomed this initiative of the Finance Minister. It's called courageous, it's called bold, it's called visionary. He has really bitten the bullet. And as far as the problem may come in implementation, it will come in implementation. But even if we talk about private healthcare today, which is much vilified, but anyone in this room, given a choice between a public hospital and a private hospital, still chooses to go to the private hospital. So people come from around the world, 100 countries, people come, get their surgeries done here at the lowest costs in the world. You may not know, but we are cheaper than Bangladesh, we are cheaper than Pakistan, Nepal and Sri Lanka. I don't compare with the West. Now, suppose the government says next month that patients are going to start coming in, will we be able to meet that challenge?
So you're saying, for starters, a lot of patients will start coming to Delhi and Mumbai and to these hospitals?
No, there are private facilities available across the country. In the last 15, 20 years, these have developed. And the good part, and where these hospitals will be able to play a role, is that 35 to 40% of their capacity is still not utilized. So the super speciality hospitals may run at 85, 90, Gangaram Hospital runs at 100%, but many hospitals, the multi-speciality and the general hospitals in the private sector run at 55, 60, 65% capacity. So that capacity is there, which can be filled. Of course, there will be challenges of skilled manpower, of shortage of doctors, nurses, but you can't blame this budget for having attempted to bring 50 crore more people into the ambit.
So as a step, it's a right step.
Absolutely.
Is the basic point you're making. Yeah.
See, we were talking about the philosophy. As a Congress party, we believe that empowerment and entitlement should go hand in hand. It's not that we are against this, but don't befool the people, because ultimately we have to deliver. And I will give you one example. The Secretary of Finance just now, you had played one video. He's telling we may do this, or we may do this, or we may do this. Is this the way the new schemes are started in our country? I had never seen this.
Okay. Actually, Rahul, I just wanted to ask you about that, because I mean, we spent some time trying to figure out.
Could I come in?
Yeah, Jaitley, Jaitley, I am just going to come to you in a second. I'm just going to get Rahul in first. Rahul, just want to understand this from a point of view of budget provisioning. Only 2,000 crores are provided right now. Their own estimates seem to say 10,000 to 15,000. They say we will add more if and when it is required. They're also going to subsume other schemes, and the states have to do it. Can you have it in a budget that there's an assumption that the states will be willing to fund some of it?
So I think you can make the assumptions for the budgeting only if you have an estimate that within the budget period, the use would be limited, right? So if within the budget period, and it happens today also, if you look at the ministries, everybody has budgets, and the ministries which have even 30 to 40% unspent amount. So the experience empirically is that in the budget, a theoretical working of the number is an important aspect to see what the total amount is, but what you provide for, what you actually expect to incur.
Yeah, but then, so 2,000 is that a fair amount? Because
I won't be able to say whether 2,000 is fair amount, but I have no reason to say
if you look at all the things they want to do, giving free medicines, free diagnostics, these don't need to be sequenced. People need diagnostic tomorrow. So
how did the math add up? Arvind, I know you want to try and Jaitley, just let's listen in to what Amitabh Kant had to say about how they think it is going to be possible to do this, and he said that Niti Aayog spent some time working it out, and then you can perhaps weigh in, Jaitley, on where you think the math may or may not be adding up. This was when I asked Amitabh Kant specifically how it is all going to be financed and how it will work in actual details. This was the answer.
Scheme for under Ayushman Bharat, the scheme for health insurance has been really thought through. I mean, Niti has done very extensive work with the Health Ministry on this. It's been extensively detailed out. It's a 60-40 scheme. We've envisaged a utilization rate of about 2.75%. It envisages a premium of about 1,100 per family. And our take on this was that it would require for about 50 crore people, about 10 crore families, it would require roughly about 5,500 to 6,000 crores. We've done a very, very detailed, extensive work on this. Look at the insurance scheme in Kerala, for instance, where actually 68% of the utilization is for government hospitals, because government hospitals radically improved as a consequence of the implementation of the insurance scheme.
Right. Dr. Ghosh, just wanted to ask you, I'm sure you were noting down those numbers. Those assumptions, so what Amitabh says is...
Yes, no, I'm not noting down those numbers. Can I just say, I have 2 points to make on this. One, the government last year rolled out a scheme supposedly for 1 lakh in their budget. At that time, they had estimated a premium of 500. for an equally large number of people for 1 lakh insurance. Now they're going to give 5 lakh insurance and for only double the amount? Really?
No, the logic, let me just explain to you the logic.
This was the government's own estimate in last year's budget.
So I'll tell you what the logic is. The logic is with insurance with very large numbers. Just give me a sec. The logic is...
This was the same large numbers last year. We have all forgotten
We've never tried to insure 500 million people.
With 1 lakh
Can I
We've never tried to insure 500 million people. No one's tried to insure 500 million people.
come in here.
meant for 500 million people, but it was 1 lakh coverage. Please listen, Vikram. They wanted to give 1 lakh coverage last year at 500 rupees premium. Now they are saying we will give 5 lakh coverage for the same 10 crore people at 1100.
Okay.
It really doesn't add up in terms of just the number.
The maths of that,
But the second point I want to make, a scheme like this is an extremely complicated scheme. This is a very large country with different states having different models. It is a real moot point which state would want to implement it in which way. These are things that should take at least a year of discussion, public discussion, negotiation, debate. All the states have to be involved. You cannot suddenly throw something out there that even state governments don't know about. When the employment guarantee was done, when any of these other programs were done, there was large-scale public debate across the country. State governments were involved. You cannot make this a budgetary announcement.
Okay, financial
allocation.
Yes and no. Some people will say you have to bite the bullet if it's a big idea. Sometimes you can't leave everything to debating and discussing, or you'll be debating and discussing until the cows come home. Yes, you've got to provide for it, and you've got to have the right
it's not even there as a line
I'm just sharing one number, Vikram.
Can I come in, Vikram?
We got some assumption from the actuaries.
Okay, one at a time.
Can I come in?
Dr. Ghosh, one at a time, one at a time. Arvind next. Yeah, Arvind next.
Yeah, see, I think Amitabh Kant explained some numbers. We can do one slice and dice on the numbers. It's pretty simple that, today your basis points on a group insurance anywhere is about 7.7%, 70 basis points. When you do such a large number, it comes down to 0.15 to 2.2%. This is where the maths is. This is $15 to $16 per person of premium, which is about 1.5, $1.6 billion, 10,000 rupees, 10,000 crore rupees. And in that, if you see the 60-40 split, about 6,000 crore rupees to be spent by the center, rolled out over the year, 2,000 crore, I think is adequate. Two things. Very quickly, when we talk about such a large scheme, we keep forgetting that today India has a very large-scale technology infrastructure. Yeah. All this is going to be tied over the DBT kind of technology infrastructure that we currently have in place. And Ujjwala, we have seen that. All the LPGs, the subsidy goes via Ujjwala. So, I think we keep forgetting that we keep protesting on the Aadhaar and, everything else on that. All this is going to be linked.
Bipin Preet is about to jump in
and
say, you're forgetting all of this.
All this is going to be linked.
Okay, let me get him to react and I have to get Harsh and I'll come back to you.
And the small comment, I had collected data from actuaries myself. And I had collected the data from all leading newspapers what got published today. I am not giving my own data. The minimum amount is 7,000 rupees per family. I am not giving any hypothetical data that 0.15.
It depends on what assumptions you reach.
No.
Because the average
there is no hypothetical data in this. This is basic maths.
People, they said
this is basic maths, my friend.
If you look at data,
if you are economist, this is basic maths.
Harsh this actually. One thing. The figures that they seem to be coming out with is that the average hospitalization cost, right, across the country is 6,000 rupees in a government hospital, 20,000 rupees in a private hospital. If you assume that 2.7% are going to utilize it, which is what they have assumed, then you end up with a private cost. It's not that everyone is going to require 5 lakh rupees per family.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how insurance works, Vikram.
This is for the entire family. It will run across members of the family.
I'm very surprised that we are debating how insurance works.
Okay, let me just get him on how. Okay, tell me practically.
I'm very amazed at my Congress friend. I'm, by the way, not representing the BJP on this, is that we don't know how insurance pools
I am not sharing my data. It is what actuaries says of the country. 7,000. It's there in almost all dailies. It's there. And I had collected the data. It's 7,000 rupees per
family. I am going to try and get on to the rest of the budget. But
Dr. Mahajan, I don't agree on you.
So
Dr. Mahajan, tell me how is this going to roll out? Is it going to be effectively rolled out?
Even if it is 7,000 rupees for one family who goes individually and takes an insurance cover, when there are 10 crore families going, I'm sure it's going to be less. It may not be 1,000. It may be 1,500. It may be 2,000. Even then, the numbers are not large. Okay. The question is going to be, one, you have to bridge the trust deficit. There is a trust deficit today, for whatever reason, between the public and the private sector. That has to be bridged.
But
for
there
the
is a
private
reason for
sector,
that, no?
for the
who will be standing by patiently, wondering when we're going to come to him, Preet. This part of what Arvind was saying is where I want to come to you now. I was speaking about a paradigm shift, right? Welfare-centric India, right? Where you're transferring a lot more directly to the people through all of these schemes. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people would have said this is a terrible, terrible idea. And it's a terrible idea. Why? Because by the time it gets to anybody, everything will be siphoned off. So all the middlemen will make money. Nothing will actually get to the poorest of the poor. Today, thanks to all the things that Arvind was talking about, Aadhaar, direct benefits, MobiKwik, the ability to directly get subsidies done, are we seeing a paradigm shift, which means that maybe it is not as bad an idea in 2017 or 2018 as it was, let's say, in 1970?
Absolutely. I think, as a concept, health insurance for all, across 500 million people is a very powerful idea. I think, it's something that you can only imagine, but it's very, very hard to implement. The only way it can be implemented, because in insurance, the biggest issue is that of awareness and also of distribution and understanding of the underlying risk. And today, understanding who the customer is, who the person is who's getting insured, or who the family is, what kind of lifestyle they live, what kind of health problems they have, that's significantly very important in order to deliver insurance at a significantly lower cost compared to what they would get if they go out in the market. So today, I think thanks to at least Aadhaar, we have created a digital identity for 1 billion Indians today, which means that it's no longer difficult or challenging to understand who the person is who's asking for the insurance. Then secondly, when we link all the different financial services, including banking, to this identity, we have a very good understanding of the lifestyle.
So, Bipin, let me ask you directly: when the government says, and this is part of the claim behind this, yeah, right? And it's actually a very powerful claim which we should look and address and try and see, is it actually correct? Yeah. The government is saying very clearly, we are able to identify those 10 crore families.
Absolutely.
100 million families can be identified, yeah, that they're the correct people, that they're below the poverty line, and we can get health insurance to them. Now, let's just pause for a minute to think about that. If that is a genuinely correct claim, it's a major claim to be making, because then logically, the logical extension of that is a lot else that you can do. Do away with a lot of the other schemes, have direct cash transfers, have a universal basic income at some point. There are lots of things that could potentially be done with that. I'm going to ask this question to all of you. Is that, to your mind, a credible claim? That we will correctly identify 500 million poor people and be able to give them health insurance?
I think so. I think the fact that every one of these people will have a digital identity, every one of them will have a bank account or a Jan Dhan account, and likely a lot of them will have internet/smartphone access, means that we will be able to do a lot in terms of how we deliver actual insurance to them. And coming to the price of the insurance being delivered, I think even if it is 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times the cost that is being projected today, it is still worth it, because if you look at countries like China, they have 97% of their population insured. Country like India has less than 10%.
Oh, 100% we should do it. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that this is a good idea and it should be done. I guess because it is such a good and such a powerful idea, we're spending so much time trying to figure out how it can actually be done. That's really what it's down to. I want to come to all of you on that point. Rahul, for all the years that I've been looking at budgets, the basic argument has been, yeah, fine, take from the rich, spend on the poor. Actually, the rich may not mind that much, neither may the middle classes, because an inclusive society, hopefully, is something that everyone wants. The reason why a lot of people resist it is because they say the money will be siphoned away. Have we now, with all these technological efforts, become better at being able to get that money to the poorest of the poor?
I think that is very apparent from most of these schemes which have been implemented, in the statistics that you get out of those schemes, that the money is actually going to the right people for the right cause in the right scheme. So it's not perfect yet, but it's quite there. The second point that you made was whether now we are in a position to identify the desired target group. And that also I agree with Vineet, as he said, that look, you have so much data that you can identify the smallest fraction of the target group with reasonable good precision. And I'll give you an example. The 40,000 rupees which was given as salaried class, and I think it was good for Finance Minister to take some time to explain how did they come to that. So many people file returns, so many people file return for the business class, so many people file for salary class. Per head tax there is 76,000, per head tax there is 25. So the analytics.
You're about to get the middle class really riled up because they will point out that you took away our medical, you took away other stuff, and you put it into this. The actual benefit was rather marginal.
Yeah, it was very, very marginal, which might get offset.
You want me to really get the middle class
involved? Yeah, but the point
before I do, let's get the middle class involved in the last 10 minutes.
I'm just commenting on your identification and targeting schemes. I mean, we can keep debating it forever, but today, with the direct benefits and the amount of money the government has saved, so it's actually the philosophy has changed from that 15 rupees of 100 rupees reaching to trying to make the 100 rupees reach the last mile. So one of the big things that we miss out in this budget is it's continuing to emphasize, which I said, continuity in policy on making sure that government revenue, which is formalizing of the economy, stays, keeps going up, and the money that the government is collecting gets utilized better, reduced leakage. I mean, last figures are about.
Do you agree that the money is reaching the poorest to the poor when all these schemes take place?
Not necessarily. We know how to target the poor now. I agree with you. We can target the poor, but the money is not reaching. Even the incentives that you have right now for the poor in the health system, whether it's for family planning or maternal health, don't always reach the people. And out-of-pocket expenses are really high in India, in spite of free medicines. So let's not say all the benefits reach, and let's not have that comfort. But
Bipin Preet's point is that eventually, as technology improves, you'll be able to target it better. Isn't that your substantive point?
Yes, I think,
But how are you going to ensure? No, 1 minute. When you have a private sector, with all respect to Dr. Mahajan and several others who run great health honestly and with commitment, but the majority of the private sector in the health, it is totally unregulated, and we know from case after case and debates in NDTV and in the newspapers, and Dr. Mahajan will also agree with me that because of the lack, not only the lack of regulation, but profit maximization as the only goal and not healthcare,
there are private sector companies, in other words, that will take advantage of it.
I respect Madam a lot, but I think this whole thing is overhyped. There is a lot of healthcare bashing that is going on in this country, and you have people from 100 countries wanting to come in and get things done. Look at the balance sheets. Madam, if I could just have my say. Look at the balance sheets of these large chains of hospitals. They are not doing very well. If money is well spent, as it is through this insurance scheme, and if unutilized capacity can be used, you can be sure that even the low rates that are prevalent here will further come down, as from 60% you get to 90% utilization of hospital facilities.
We haven't seen it in any other sector.
Jaitley, if I could just ask you one question. This entire concept of moving to a welfare state, if that is indeed what is happening, the fact that the government seems to believe it can be targeted better, is that something that is that at least something which you think is now feasible? The possibility of direct benefit payments to the poorest of the poor without it all getting siphoned off somewhere along the way?
My concern about the targeting is really exclusion. Already in food, we are seeing at least 15 deaths because fingerprints haven't matched. We know that 1 crore people in Rajasthan are being denied their food ration. So I really worry about exclusion of the poor, and I think this is a continuing problem that is not solved here. But more than that, there is a fundamental concern. Poonam has been raising it. Health is a sector with massive market failure because of information asymmetry. You have to have strong government presence and very strong regulatory capacity.
That's what I was trying.
I want to turn to the audience.
Just a terrible situation, which is why our health system is a mess.
Problem is not identification.
So you have to have a much more effective system of public provision and regulation.
Problem is not identification. In fact, we started Aadhaar, DBT with that technology intervention only. Problem is that how that poor person, even if whatever insurance, even it is 30,000, getting regulations, how he is going to get reimbursement, that process, first thing. Second, it should not happen like what the another Jumla which started with the agriculture. Now there are all sort of formulas coming in the country, A2, A2 plus FL, C2, D2. It should not happen like this.
But with respect, all big ideas are difficult to implement. Because a big idea is difficult to implement should not mean you shouldn't try to do it. If you can get it and you can pull it off, and if it is actually effective,
But
you
you
might
know,
try.
But I want to just add into the
part.
exclusion bit. I want to add into this exclusion bit. I think there's a lot of talk about exclusion when it comes to any benefits. I mean, we keep comparing it in isolation. While any exclusion is not desired, but look at the scale that it has included people. I mean, banking, you talk about exclusion. How can we talk about exclusion when we have had 30 crore Jan Dhan accounts which are being targeted now to 60 crores?
Okay.
Only thing is that
I
we should
let
not,
me
Can I just
not
ask both
befool
all
the
of you?
common
I'm
people.
going to turn to the audience out here, get some quick words from members of the audience. Yeah, can you just say something? Yeah, yeah, Mike. Just grab the mic. Yeah.
So the health insurance thing is a big vision, but the thing, the same vision was given to the farmers that the income would be doubled by 2020. But the MSP, by giving them 1.5 times more MSP to cost protection,
Okay.
it would
Farmers. I was about to come to farmers. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's happening to welfare?
As a citizen, you bit the bullet in OROP and you had a minuscule number allocated. But the subsequent government actually implemented your idea.
That is another issue. Because
so
that
wouldn't
was
you
not
see?
in full
Wouldn't you
scale.
see that the 2,000 allocated for Modicare may be minuscule?
Okay.
But at
They
least
may be
have
able
the
to
grace
implement
to
it. Fine. Let me
acknowledge
just-
it's a big idea.
Let me just get some other
Can
people
I
in.
react to this, Vikram?
Yeah, well, okay, while he is speaking.
Because he had raised, because we don't want that. See, when you are committing something, you have to fulfill. Otherwise, don't play with the emotions of the people.
Okay, fine. Gentlemen here.
I have a question on taxation. The mutual funds have been getting a large push from everywhere, and middle class does invest in mutual funds. Now they have given taxation on the distribution of distribution of income of equity oriented mutual funds. So
Okay.
dividend was already taxed. So won't that affect the middle class income?
Okay, I'm going to allow you to answer that while the mic passes to that gentleman. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right that the mutual fund distribution being brought to tax effectively means, if you understand this, that the operating company which earns profit pays the tax in the range of about 25%. Then there is a 20% distribution tax, it makes it close to about 40%. And then you have a distribution tax of 10%, which
So
makes
the
it about
tax is
45%.
really, that's a downside of the welfare state.
So-
you know,
so the
taxation starts to
45%
balloon and
I
starts to
would
balloon in a frightening manner.
from a person who is going through the mutual fund.
Like you're going to take the money from middle class and from the rich people. What if the schemes fails? So what are you going to do with that money, the premium money?
Okay, can you just pass the mic all the way across here to these people here? These ladies here. Yeah, just pass it down here. Quickly. Yeah. Yeah. You and then the lady and then we are done.
We're talking of welfare, but no, there's nothing being allocated for research and development in any area. So don't you think research and development is also a way forward for welfare?
Okay, fine. The lady behind you.
My question is, like, the person with disabilities are lagging behind in this. In our budget, there is only travel allowances has been increased in the budget. There is nothing, when our public transport is still inaccessible to people, then what's the use of having the travel allowances increased in this?
Okay, fine. One last comment, the gentleman behind you.
Sir, a big ticket proposal like Modicare, is it an indication of preponing of budget, elections, general elections?
Interesting question. I want to see who has a
Because
who has
it
a
affects
take on
more
that.
than 40%
All right,
of
fine.
our
Let me come to all of you.
population.
Let me come to all of you for final thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes, so I want to again return to the overall question that I was asking. As a direction, and let me just again pose it to you. You have a fast-growing economy. You have a situation which we saw last year that 1% of people is getting 73% of the riches. There's a case to be made for inclusion. There was a case to be made for really worrying about the farmers, who are 51% of the population. And as some people said, lots of things were announced, not very clear what is being done about it. So with that as a background, are we headed in the right direction?
I think we're headed in the right direction. It's a visionary step, but it's just a step. The problems are going to come in the implementation. And for this whole scheme, it's huge to be implemented. The healthcare industry has to be given infrastructure status. You'd be surprised that we borrow money at commercial rates. Land is
Give them
the
infrastructure
most expensive. And also, they are thinking of public sector also 24 new medical colleges, because we need more skilled people.
Dr. Bajan, I'm just down to 1 minute for each for the whole thing. So just one line
my
each.
My friend was talking about implementation. Implementation comes when there is allocation. Without allocation, announcing schemes, MSP plus this, universal health. Last budget you gave universal income. People are fed up with acronyms.
I think this government is known for big, bold moves. Demonetization was first. GST was the second. Both of them were implemented. Yes, there were problems in implementation, but eventually we are seeing the benefits. I think we are seeing
the benefits of demonetization. I know you liked it for various reasons, but the benefits for the rest of us on demonetization still not clear.
I think and this would be the third one that people would remember, that this is the beginning of something very, very big. As a concept,
this has probably been welcomed more than the other two. But Jaitley, just quick, one last line from you, on the move towards the welfare state, if at all we are seeing it.
For me, Vikram?
Yeah, one quick last line.
No. Yeah. Look, I mean, in talk, yes. In terms of action, in terms of allocation, there is nothing. That's my problem. I would welcome a move towards the welfare state. Unfortunately, it's a contraction. A reduction in health spending as a share of GDP, a reduction in the employment as a share of GDP, a reduction in all of the kinds of expenditure that I would value.
All right.
So while
I don't think there's a real movement in the direction of a welfare state. I agree with Jaitley that financially,
economically, you cannot feel happy, but it's to be welcomed, because there is now we're going to see probably political commitment to health, which we didn't see earlier. And second, I think the biggest beneficiaries here are going to end up, to answer your question, the insurance agencies. And how much money, how much health benefit will go to the poor, unless there is not just regulation but planning and implementation.
Fine. Last word from you, Arvind.
So I think this budget, as I said, is a vision statement from the government. It has something for everyone. Builds the energy, transport, city infrastructure, smart cities and everything else. And of course the social infrastructure, health, education, everything combined. And the ease of living is becoming a criteria for the government, which is a very important thing. So going forward, that's going to be one of the things to make sure that the middle class, the urban, get the ease of living, the rural get the minimum benefits that they desire, and everybody progresses. So it's a government.
I just want to say that even though the budget allocation as a percentage of GDP goes down slightly, but if you have an efficiency in the same money, which is 6 times, instead of 15 rupees being actually spent, you now can spend 90 or 100, then 6 times effective is the same value.
All right, fine. I'm going to have to end it there for the moment. So, interesting budget, big ideas in it. Was the money there? Was it allocated correctly? That's, of course, the big question. Middle classes, not entirely happy with the budget. Let's see how all of that pans out as we go forward. And we'll keep on watching Modicare, as it's being called. Interesting idea. Let's hope it can be implemented. That's it for now. Bye from all of us on the Big Five TV.